Hey, welcome back. It's JWalter here. In today's video, I have a very special guest. As you can see, it's Loida Velasquez from eXp Realty in Southern California. She has a real estate channel all about real estate related topics with YouTube with 76,000 subscribers, all things related to real estate related topics and also tips for real estate agents. A lot of her videos have over 100,000 views, quite impressive, and also over 25,000 followers on Instagram. Loida, welcome to the channel.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. I'm really excited to be having this conversation about real estate today with you.
Awesome. Me too. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yes, so I am a real estate agent in Southern California. I have been in the business for 6 years. Just like you mentioned, when I started to create content specifically for real estate agents here on YouTube. I specialize working in the Southern California area, so Los Angeles, Orange County, and the Inland Empire, which is San Bernardino and Riverside. I focus a lot with sellers, and a lot of the buyers that I do get are usually my sellers that have to purchase. So I pretty much have built my business through the old school approach of cold calling and door knocking. I go a lot after expireds and for sale by owners. So
Wow.
all of the people that are stressed out and pissed off, those are the people that I love to call. And I have had success in. So that's kind of a little bit of what I do in a nutshell.
Oh man, I used to call. I wouldn't say I did it very often, but I have called FSBOs, which are for sale by owners, and then also expired listings. And then I think I've got hung up more often than I ever have in my entire life when I call these people. So you have to have a good demeanor and you have to be personable. So hats off to you for that. That's amazing.
Yes, thank you.
So you started your YouTube channel, what, about 6 years ago? Is that right?
Yes, I was in the process of getting my license, and I remember because I wanted to see what it was like to be a real estate agent. And I wasn't
Mm,
really finding any content out there. And the content that was being put out, it was like sporadic. So I told myself, you know what, I'm going to just start recording my journey. And if it helps someone, great. If not, at least I can kind of document it and see my progression over time. And along with that, I wasn't seeing a lot of women talking about real estate and their
mhm.
experience. So that was a great opportunity for me to kind of just, you know what, let's do this, let's be consistent. And that's where I am now.
That's awesome. I mean, kind of, it's a self-inflicted accountability tool for
Yeah,
yourself as well. I bet, right? It's like, this is how you do it. Well, I better preach what I'm actually saying to do too,
exactly. Yeah.
right? Makes sense. And then, so I do want to talk briefly about your YouTube channel, but then also about the Southern California real estate market as well. But how has YouTube? How has it benefited your business in general? You've been going at it this for 6 years now. It's quite impressive.
Yeah. So when I first started, I told myself, you know, if I'm going to do this, let's be consistent. I knew that I
Mhm.
wasn't going to get like 1 million subscribers overnight and a ton of views. But at the same time, when I started to create these videos, for me, it was more of, you know what, I'm going to create content that hopefully helps some agent out there. Because there has always been a perception that maybe some real estate agents are shady, they don't know what they're doing. So I kind of wanted to share what I was learning and how to do things right. So I started to create a lot of content for real estate agents, everything from, you know, me cold calling, me doing live calls, tips for open houses and things like that. I was putting out one video every single week, and I stuck to that schedule over the past couple
Smart.
years. And the business that I have been able to get from just putting myself out there is that now it's gotten to the point that I do get a lot of referrals, specifically from agents, since most of my audience are real estate agents all
Mm.
across the nation. So it's a lot of agent to agent referral. Also, any clients that I do end up meeting with that either want to work with me to list their home or for me to represent them in the purchase. Many times they're going to Google and typing in my name, and when they see my YouTube videos, it just makes our conversation so much
Mhm.
easier to have, and they almost feel like they know me already by the time that we meet. So it gives that sense of credibility. So those are just kind of a few things of how social media, specifically YouTube, has helped me in my business.
That is awesome. That's quite impressive. And I think that I 100% agree with you with having a YouTube channel. People watch your videos, they feel like they know, like, and trust you, even though they haven't even met you yet.
Yeah.
And so, can you talk about a little about when people reach out to you? What is it like? Hey, I'm calling you to interview for listing my house. I'm talking to a whole bunch of real estate agents, or is it more like, Loida, is it really you? Is it more like that? We're like, oh my gosh, I would love you for listing my house. Like, what is it? What's been like that like?
Yeah, it's almost like that second one that you just
Mm.
mentioned. And it's funny because, at the end of the day, like I mentioned, when I first started to do these YouTube videos, I didn't have in my mind, I'm going to do YouTube videos to become a YouTuber. Even up to this point, I
Mhm.
don't consider myself a YouTuber. For me, it's just more like, look, I'm putting out content because agents need it. Agents are always reaching out to me, telling me that their brokerages use my videos for training purposes.
Oh,
So that
really?
just
That's
goes to
awesome.
tell me
That's
that,
cool.
some agents, they're just not getting the proper education. So when these potential sellers or clients reach out to me, they email me, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house and I've been watching your videos. Let me know if you can help. I'm located in this city. So then we schedule a call. I get on a call with them and they're like, oh my gosh, is this really Loida? Like, I recognize your voice from the YouTube videos. I'm like, yeah, it's me. And it just makes things so much easier because a lot of times they're not interviewing anybody else because they
Mhm.
have been watching my content for so long that they know that I'm the expert and I know what I'm doing. So it just makes it so much easier and then eliminates my competition. Or if they have some type of doubt, I've been in the business for so long that I know exactly how to overcome any doubt or concern that they might have. So the conversations are usually very friendly. They know that I am the professional, whatever I advise them to do or not do, if it's a good time or hold off, they pay attention to it and they don't question what I'm telling them, which is, I think, one of the biggest things that us as real estate agents, we hate it when someone, they hire us as an agent, but then they go and talk to their relatives and their friends and they're like, hey, so I heard this. And I'm like, if you have any questions, come to me first.
I think that's a really good segue, and I 100% agree with you that I think through video, especially through YouTube, your content's always going to be out there, and so if someone wants
Mhm.
to get to know you, watching videos, I think video, in my opinion, is the best way to build trust because if you're acting yourself online and posting videos and you're acting yourself, then people are going to be attracted to you because or like people are going to be attracted to you, right? And so that
Mhm.
can be a really good way of building rapport. But what you said with working with agents and then buyers as well, I think that's probably a good segue with what we're talking about when we were talking offline about Zillow houses. So
Yes.
tell you have some firsthand experience, some recent firsthand experience with houses that are owned by Zillow. So please tell us about that.
Yes. So the first story, because I'm going to give you two. Obviously, we
Perfect.
have been seeing recently a lot of articles have been coming out specifically within the past couple of days that Zillow's holding off on purchasing any more properties. What we have seen is that they're buying these properties almost at market value and putting them back on the market for the same price or maybe even less.
Mhm.
We have a team member. She's out in Lakeland, Florida. She had a listing. She represented the seller. A buyer submitted an offer, and the buyer submitted. They listed the property for 369. The buyer submitted an offer for 389. Everything was going great. They did the inspections, cash offer. And then that buyer, which had their own agent, ended up going on Zillow and saw that Zillow had dropped the Zestimate. And that Zestimate was very different from what the actual contract price was for, but it affected them so much that they ended up canceling that transaction.
What? Oh
They
my god.
canceled because of that Zestimate.
Oh
So
my, I
then
have not heard anything like this before. That's crazy.
yes. So our team member, she was like, my mind was blown. I tried to have a conversation with their agent, like,
Oh my
look,
gosh.
the comps are this, like, where is your client getting this information from? But they were so stuck on that number that it broke the deal. Luckily, she was able to get it back under contract that following day for pretty much the same price that they had gone under contract before.
Mhm.
But it just goes to show how consumers maybe see the Zestimate or estimate numbers from websites like this and really see that as, this is super credible information. Another
Wow.
example that I have is that I recently got referred a buyer. He's been looking out here in Orange County. He told me, you know what, my price range is like under 650. He sent me a property this morning. It's currently listed for 675. And he said, you know what? They overpriced it. The valuation shows that it should be 625. So if they drop it to 620 or 600, I'll submit an offer. So I was just curious because, first of all, he's just a buyer. he's not an appraiser or anything like that. So I was confused. So I was like, let me go on the MLS and look up this property and look at the comps. A neighbor literally next door recently sold for 700. So I was super confused, and I'm like, you know what? Let me go to Zillow to see what the Zestimate says. And sure
Uh,
enough, Zillow said the Zestimate was 625, and that's how he came up with the $50,000 that he thought it was overpriced.
Cringing
And
over
I'm
here,
like,
Loida.
yeah, and it's just crazy that people really think that, these figures are accurate when they're really not. That's why
Hmm.
I brought it up to you earlier, because I feel that at the end of the day, any consumer, especially buyers, if you have any question or concern about a price of a property, your real estate agent should be the first
Yes.
person for you to go to and be like, hey, I'm just curious, is this right? Or what do you think about it? Not so much a website that goes based off of mathematical algorithms to provide numbers.
Absolutely true. There's a well-known real estate appraiser here in the greater Sacramento area. And when people challenge him on the Zestimate, he always says that Zillow doesn't know if 100 cats lives inside that house or not.
Exactly. Yes.
And then I was telling, I had a live stream a couple of days ago, and I was telling people on there that often when I list a house for sale, I talk about the price with my clients before I even look at the Zestimate. When we come up with a price, sometimes before I list it, I'll just for the fun look at the Zestimate to see what it is, and sometimes it'll be way off. And so there was one time where, several times actually, but where I listed the house. Let's just say it was 500,000. It was the Zestimate was like 350 or something, way off. Or 450. And then once I listed it, then in my opinion, I think what Zillow does is that they look at, see, okay, well, a new listing, they get a ton of views. Then one's going to assume that's going to be a hot property and it's going to sell for over the asking. So the Zestimate adjusts. There's nothing's changed with the property, no remodel or anything like that. So they often adjust his estimate when it's listed for sale, and then suddenly
Mm-hmm.
when the house sells, then of course his estimate's so close to what the house sold for, but that was only
Yeah,
because they changed it. So it blows my
exactly.
mind. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's crazy.
And so you also talked to me about the writing offers on Zillow properties and waiting to hear back for a very, very long time. So tell us about that as well.
Yes. Yeah. So we have a lot of team members in Florida. We're nationwide, and even out here.
Mm,
I remember one of our team members submitted an offer on a property that's owned by Zillow, and the buyer's super excited. They wrote in an offer. They wanted to get an answer within 2 days, because obviously these buyers are ready, willing, and able, like, let's go.
hmm.
And initially, they couldn't get a hold of anyone to answer their questions. And when they did, they said, you know what, our turnaround time to get you a response might be minimum 10 days. So we hear from Zillow 10 days to 3 weeks. And I'm like,
Oh,
what?
man. That's crazy. So everyone who knows, like in California, when we write an offer, if we don't write anything about the
Mhm.
expiration, that offer technically expires 3 days after you write it up. And
Yeah.
so to get an answer 10 business days later is just like, by that time they could have written three other offers and then got in contract on the third one.
Yeah. And out here in California too, usually sometimes if we want to, we can make the expiration sooner than the 3 days.
Hmm.
So if you make it 24 hours or 48 hours, they don't respond, we're moving on. And if we get our offer accepted somewhere else, they're probably going to move on with it. Like, a lot of buyers are very impatient and they just want to get into a home. And then us as real estate agents, it's almost like we have to calm them down and let them know, hey, it might take 10 days, but let's keep on looking. Because if we don't, or if we don't let them know what the actual situation is, sometimes they think that we don't know how to do our job, when in reality it is something
Yeah.
completely outside of our control.
Yeah, it could be a potential. I'm just thinking about it to myself that this could be a potential benefit for buyers, though, because I imagine a lot of buyers and real estate
Mhm.
agents don't want to work with Zillow because these turnaround times are so great. I can only imagine when you send a request for repairs, how long that's going to take. I
Yes,
mean,
imagine.
yeah, I mean, you would have to get like extension after extension for a close of escrow, you would assume, and then the removal of contingencies. But for someone who's willing to be super patient as a buyer, then
Mhm.
maybe write an offer and then you move on to the next property and see if you get in contract to find a better house. If you don't, and you get an answer back from Zillow, then maybe you'll get a positive response.
Yeah, eventually you'll hear back.
Eventually, yeah, exactly. Maybe in 2022.
Yeah.
Um, well, that's a good warning for people. And not to say you shouldn't write an offer on a Zillow property, but hey, some challenges you may face if
Mhm.
you do, right?
Yes.
So I guess I want to talk about too, like you're based in Southern California, you cover like the Los Angeles and Orange County areas, is that right?
Yeah.
Got it. And so what are you seeing like in your housing market? What have you seen since, let's say, like, mid last year? What has happened? What have you witnessed? Because obviously there's been a lot of changes with the housing market and in the world, really, frankly. So yeah, what have you seen for the changes in the real estate market where you're in your neck of the woods?
Yeah. So it's crazy because last year, when everything started to happen with the pandemic, I remember people in the beginning of the year, they were kind of freaking out. I had a
Hmm.
few listings under contract. The buyers backed out. They were like, we don't know
Hmm.
what's going to happen to our job. So we saw a lot of that going on in the beginning. Once kind of things started to stabilize a little bit and people got a little bit better in terms of what was happening, we started to see the market pick up to the point that by the end of the year, it was just an extreme seller's market,
Hmm.
multiple offers, over 10, 20 offers. And people are just not being able to get into homes, especially first time buyers. The prices of homes have increased significantly. I even wrote down some numbers just so that you guys can see where
Awesome.
they're at.
We love
So in
numbers on this channel.
Okay, perfect. So in January in LA County, the average price of a home was 721,000. Currently, that same house is worth 820.
Wait, so is that January of last year?
January of this year.
Wait, say this again. This year, 720 in January was the average home price, and now it's
Yes,
800.
20.
What? That's crazy. That's
For
nuts.
Orange County, January of this year, the average was 787. Currently, the average is 900,000.
What? These are sold prices?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh, that's insane. So I can only
I
imagine if someone has like, I want to buy a house, and here's my budget of 750, and now they're like they're priced out, or they have to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I helped one of my buyers last year. She bought a condo in Riverside, which Riverside is a little bit further out, maybe like an hour and a half away from LA. It's much
Hmm.
cheaper out there. And she bought a small condo. We got it under asking price. They were asking 239. She got it for 234. Then this year she said, you know what, Loida, I want to just get out of California. So let's just put it on the market. So she had it for 17 months. We closed last month for 310 and she bought it for 234 in April last year.
That's ridiculous. That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So that's what
some
we're seeing.
That's insane. Yeah. And we're seeing that in Sacramento too, with a lot of people are moving here, especially from the Bay Area, because it's
Mhm.
work at home arrangements. And obviously, it's a lot cheaper to live in Sacramento, for example. Um, and I've been reporting on about like California housing market updates too about the sale of luxury houses. And I imagine you probably see a fair share of those in your neck of the woods too. So, yeah, have you witnessed any like crazy sales in Southern California that you could share about?
Well, when it comes to luxury homes, for example, in the LA area, I'll tell you, in Hollywood, we're seeing a lot of changes in terms of like what's going on just as a community there, that some
Mm,
homes are taking a little bit longer to sell.
hmm.
But in Orange County, I think anything under a million sells very quickly, under two as well. It just like really depends. In Orange County right now, a very small condo can cost almost 900,000, and it's just becoming a little difficult, especially for first time buyers, to try and get into these properties, just because at that point, you need maybe two or three incomes combined to be able to even qualify for something
Hmm.
at that price
Yeah,
range.
right. I mean, I can imagine buying my first house and it's $1 million. It's hard to even fathom what that would be like. My
Yeah.
my first house is definitely not $1 million, that's for sure.
Yeah. In LA County, a lot of just, first time buyers, they usually qualify for the 500,000 price range. Out here,
Hmm.
you're lucky if you can find maybe a one bedroom for like 450.
Is
There's
that
like
for
really
a
no
condo,
inventory.
basically, probably?
A condo, yeah, you can find a condo
Got
in
it.
not like the best area of Los Angeles.
I see. Gosh, for 500,000, it's a one bedroom and it's in a bad area, basically.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
interesting. And can you give some more insight about like what's going on in Hollywood? Is that like maybe due to like I mean, seeing these videos of the tent cities all over the sidewalks and stuff? Is
Yes.
it homelessness? Is that what's called? Yeah.
The homelessness, yes, definitely. It's gotten worse, I feel,
Hmm.
because a lot of people maybe from earlier last year, they lost their jobs or they're all kind of gone to LA.
Yeah.
Downtown LA is pretty bad. Hollywood as
Hmm.
well. So it's like you have these $1 million homes, and then the next block is just full of tents.
Wow.
So buyers are interested in the homes, but once they get there, they're like, actually, you know what, never mind, because the
Mm,
neighborhood just looks a little sketchy, or we're not really comfortable here.
totally makes sense. It's such a tough problem in California, and especially I know
Hmm.
in Los Angeles too. It's such a huge issue. In Sacramento, we have a huge issue as well. Hard to know what to do with that.
Yeah.
So like going forward into the real estate market in 2022, and I guess like now too, are you seeing like a slowdown compared to like earlier this year? And then what's your forecast for next year, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, so we have seen it slow down a little bit in terms of not as
Hmm.
crazy with buyers and
Yeah,
extremely amounts of multiple offers.
yeah,
Something that we briefly touched on before we went live is that, people always ask, is the market going to crash? And I think
yes.
last year when things started to happen, everyone thought that this year the market was going to crash. But what happened is that prices just have kept on going up. So when someone asks me that question, is I say, you know what? People have been saying for the past 5 years that the market's going to crash next year, but we don't even know. We don't have a crystal ball to know exactly when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen or who's going to be affected. So what I see for next year, especially with the forbearance moratoriums and all of that, maybe people going to foreclosure, we'll probably see a lot more inventory going on the market. Out here in LA area, there's a lot of rent control. So during the past
Hmm.
couple months when the tenant eviction, you couldn't do any of that. We had a lot of investors that wanted to sell their multi-units, but
Hmm.
unfortunately they were in rent control areas. So even though the properties were worth maybe close to a million or 800,000, the rents have been so low that investors just don't even want to purchase. So we've also
Mm.
seen a lot of that. The tenants have been there for over 20 years. They pay maybe $600 a month, and market rents are more like 2,800. So
Wow.
investors in that sense have been affected because they want to sell, they want to do a 1031 exchange, but then nobody really is interested in purchasing unless they sell below market value. Or they don't want to
Hmm.
take on the tenants because, well, what if the tenants don't pay me? They haven't been paying. It's just been very tricky with those investment properties and tenant
Hmm.
properties. So we're probably going to see a lot more of that going on the market now that I think the tenant eviction has been lifted, so you can actually proceed with that. That has just been specifically for LA, Los Angeles.
Hmm.
Outside of LA, Riverside County, people were evicting all of last year. I had a
Oh,
client
really?
that
Huh.
unfortunately, the tenants, we were going to be selling the home and putting it on the market in March before we knew anything was going to happen. Then the moment the stay at home order happened, the tenant
Hmm.
said, you know what? We can't move. We need to stay here because we don't know what's going to happen with our
Oh
job.
man.
They ended up milking it. They stayed there. It got to the
Wow.
point that we had to go through the eviction process and it took a year to get them out. And
Wow.
and after that,
Can
she's
you
like, I gotta
imagine?
sell.
Oh wow. 'Cause so she wanted to sell basically right
Yes.
before this all happened. And I mean, like we're in October the following year. I
Yeah.
feel for her. That's tough. That's really tough. That
Yeah.
took a year
She
for geez. All right.
Yeah, she gave them a 60-day notice in January so that they needed to be out in March. And then everything went down. And then after that, they were like, well, we're not going to pay you rent. We don't have to pay you rent because of everything that's going on.
Hmm.
And I think
Yeah.
that's something that a lot of people have been misinformed as well, or think, well, you know what? I heard it in the news that I don't have to pay my rent, so I'm not going to do that. But the homeowners still have to pay the mortgage. So with me working with her, and she's one of my clients that I have helped multiple times, for me, it was just more like calming her down and letting her know, you know what, we just have to figure out what are the resources that we have available to us, what can we do, and aside from that, it's just all about being patient because unfortunately, the courts are closed. We can't do anything until the
Hmm.
courts open. So that was a little issue that came up, but finally it got resolved. And once we were able to get them out, she put the home on the market. We got 13 offers. They sold
Wow.
20,000 above asking price in a
Wow.
weekend. So she was excited about that
Wow.
part.
I mean, there's a saving grace right there because home prices have increased so much. And even if you have
Yeah.
a tenant who's not paying rent, you're suffering in the meantime. But when you're
Mhm.
able to sell the property, then it's worth so much more than back. I mean, she's probably better off having a non-paying tenant and having the property sit and then
Yeah.
selling it now versus selling it last March, I bet.
Yeah,
But I can
exactly.
imagine it must have been so frustrating for
Oh, yeah.
her during that process. I can imagine. So I guess for anyone, another question I get that's very, very common is like, should I buy now or should I wait? So what do you tell people who ask you that? You probably get
When
that a lot as well, I bet.
Yeah, yeah, I do, especially from like first time buyers or people that are kind of like, you know what, I hear interest rates are really low. Should I take advantage? I The question that I ask these potential buyers are, for example, what is your long-term goal? Are you looking to stay there for like a couple years, or is this a home that you plan on living in for like
Exactly.
the next 10 years?
Yep.
Because the interest rates are low, and if the numbers make sense, you're going to have that fixed price for the next 10 years or however long you want to be there. But if you don't have any plans on being there for more than a year or two, then I would say, you know what, hold off and see. Perhaps the prices might dip down a little bit. Interest rates are probably going to go up, but at that point, you're better off just waiting than bouncing around type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I always tell people I have long-term time horizons too,
Mhm.
because people reach out and say, "Hey, I want to move, but I might want to sell in a year." And it's like, okay, well, just rent. We have no idea what
Yeah,
the housing market's going to be like in one
exactly.
year, and so you can be risky and do it. But if I was in their shoes, I definitely wouldn't. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, great, Loda. Is there anything that you want to add on? I know you have like you do a lot of videos about, real estate agent tips on your YouTube channel. Anything that, if there's any real estate agents who are watching, that they should be aware of?
Yeah, you guys can check out my YouTube channel. I have a lot of content on there specifically for real estate agents, especially if you're new and confused and you don't know about cold calling or what to do. You can just go on my channel. I think I have over 200 videos on there that probably answer your questions. And I also here and there do new agent boot camps where in 5 days I just do like a crash course from objection handling and scripts to with buyers, sellers, and investors. So that's all stuff that I do as well.
That's awesome that you do that because when you get your real estate license, you're like, okay, well, I guess sell a house now. It's like,
Yeah.
well, you have to meet people first and say, how do you do that? It's very, very challenging. So that's good that you did that and good on you for that. Well, great, Loida. I really appreciate your time. I can't believe that you actually agreed to come on my channel with me. I really appreciate your time, and I know a lot of people got a lot of value out of this video too. So if you did, hit the like button. I appreciate that, and go check out Loida's YouTube channel. Check her out on Instagram as well. I was actually looking at your Instagram page today, and you have a lot of cool and funny like TikTok like short videos. So yeah,
Yeah.
really good. Those are really well done. So well done on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thanks again. And everyone who watched this video, please hit the like button and we'll see you on the next video.